Hello, my name is William M. Pychek Jr. I'm the founder and president of Teens Against Drunk Driving, and I thank you for visiting our Victim Impact Fund page. What you're about to see is an example of a victim that has no scars, has nothing outwardly that you would be able to see, but yet she's a victim. Her children are a victim. And this is a story of someone we'll call Anne. We've disguised her to protect her children. And I hope that after you see her story, you'll begin to think and perhaps redefine the victim definition of any sort of traffic accident. And I certainly hope that you partner with us, whether a corporate or a individual, in helping us help these victims through some very, very trying times. Thank you.
Watching a movie with my girlfriends. My children were home with the babysitter. It was just a normal Friday night. I went to go see the movie. My husband was at work, and then he had gotten off of work and said he was going to a bar, which was pretty common for him. That's what he did after work. He was in the occupation where that's what his friends did. They just went to bars and stayed there and would actually frequent a couple different bars in one night. Then I got home that night after the movie and let the babysitter go, and I was home with the kids. The kids were sleeping, and time was going by through the night, and I was starting to get a little concerned because he wasn't coming home. And I started thinking, now I know he's drinking, I know he's out, anything can happen. I tried calling him. I can't get a hold of him. He's not answering his cell phone. There's no way to get a hold of him. And as time's going on, I'm listening for every car door I can hear. I'm trying to look out the windows, every little creak. I was just so afraid something could happen. Which this was not the first time. This has happened a lot. I was afraid so many times that something bad was going to happen. So I ended up trying to think in my head what kind of bars he would be at. I started flipping through the phone book. I didn't want to be that kind of wife that was always calling and checking up on him. He's an adult. He was over 40 years old. This isn't something that I thought I'd have to do. So I flipped through the phone book. I'm calling bars. I'm trying to look for him. I ended up to call a bar that we kind of knew some of the people there, so they knew him. When I called, they had told me he had left a while ago, and I thought, okay, well then he should be coming home. And all of a sudden my cell phone rang, and I went to the cell phone and I answered it, and it was a stranger that I did not know calling from a number saying, I have your husband, he's in the hospital. And I said, oh my God, is he okay? My first instinct. And he said, yeah, he's okay. And they told me the hospital, and all I could think is, oh my gosh, this is terrible. Oh, and they did mention he was in an accident. So I had to wait for a minute to call somebody. This is 2 o'clock in the morning by now. I'm trying to call somebody. I call my aunt and uncle to come over because I have 2 small children sleeping in the bed that I don't want to disturb and scare them. They both came over because I wanted somebody to go with me and somebody to stay with the children. We head to the hospital. First of all, I apologize, when they were coming to get me to come to my house, they said we couldn't get through. There was a really bad accident, so we had to take another way. And when they got there, I said, oh, shoo, at least I know it wasn't my husband because they just called from the hospital. Finding out later that it was the accident my husband was involved in. So when I got to the hospital, I get to the emergency room, security's there, I'm saying, can I go back see him? They were kind of hesitant, they were acting really strange, and I thought, okay, and I had never been to this hospital before. So I go to the back of the hospital, they let me in, and as soon as I get back there are police, there's just people walking all over. It looked like a scene from a movie. It was so surreal. And they said, what are you doing back here? You can't be back here. This is a police matter. And he's in trouble. And I'm like, what's going on? And nobody would tell me, and I was just so scared and crying, and I didn't know what to do. And then they showed me him, and I could see him laying there on a table, and I went there, and he's all bandaged and bloody, and they said, you can go see him for a minute. So I said, okay. I looked down at him, and he looked at me, and he just said, I'm sorry. And I could tell. I just looked at him, and I said, he's been drinking. It was the eyes that I've seen so many times before. And all I saw was my life flash before me, like, oh my gosh, what has happened? So I left, well, because the police told me to, basically. I thanked the police for letting me see him for a moment. Went back in the waiting room, and some people came out and talked to me and said there was other people involved in the accident. And I said, are they okay? What's going on? And they said, there's somebody who's in the hospital right now. That's all we could tell you. And it was just so scary. Nobody could tell me what was going on. I didn't know what happened. And basically, the only thing I knew is that he had caused the accident. Then I got home. I had to, the next day, go to the courthouse where he was, because they took him to court right away. After they released him from the hospital, took him to court. And I was told I had to come up with a bond of $10,000. And here I am at the time, a stay-at-home mother. He was the primary, money maker of the house, whatever, breadwinner. And I just was so scared. It was just such a surreal, again, I use that word again, but it was such a time in my life where I don't even know. It's so hard. You're going through the motions, and you feel like you're in a movie. It doesn't even seem real. Like, this is like, how could this be happening to me? It was just normal. There wasn't anything, it was very hard, very hard. So I ended up having to come up with this money and all this stuff, and the next thing you know, I had to have my father come give some of his money, and I'm feeling terrible because now I'm getting money from him, and I'm getting other people involved, and it's embarrassing as can be because I'm asking for money to get him out of the situation. He's up at the judge's scene with crutches. He's still injured from the accident. He had broken part of his leg, and then again, they're not telling me anything about the person, the victim, the person that was hurt. All I knew is that he was in the hospital. They would give us no information. I knew nothing. And finally, I go, we pay the bond, and they tell me, yep, he's gone. I didn't pay the bond. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was going to, and they said, you can't. They already shipped him out on the bus. They took him to the local jail.
Your husband?
Yes, my husband. They took him to the jail, so it was too late. So now I had to go down to a city where I was very uncomfortable because I had grown up in the suburbs. I didn't know my way around anywhere. I'm scared. They tell you can only go one person at a time in there. So I drove with somebody. They waited in the car. I go in. They're searching you. It was just a horrifying, terrible feeling. I just felt invaded. I felt embarrassed. I felt confused and so scared. So I went in there. I paid the bond, and then they said, it's going to take a while for him to be released. So then I had to go sit back in a car and just wait for hours for him to come out. And he finally comes out, and I'm looking at this person, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I can't believe this person that I had married has caused so much damage and just everything. It was really hard. So then, as time went on, he went into a recovery program. They found out his BAC level was extremely high. It was over 2 point something, very high. They didn't know. I come to find out that the accident that my aunt and uncle had passed through was the same accident, and it had been shut down for 4 hours for investigation. The truck he was driving had rolled. He was thrown from the vehicle. He had hit another vehicle, and All I knew was that there was a man that was injured. That's all I knew. This had taken place in November. I did not find out anything until January. And I found out through the internet, actually, because we kept trying to find out about this poor man. My children found out about the accident. I went straight to the school, told the school, this is what's happening in my children's life. My husband was upset with me and said, this is embarrassing, why would you tell people? I said, because you know what, these are the kids and they might be showing signs of things bothering them. This is a serious thing that their father just did. And when I did, I was very thankful because I told the secretary of the school. She actually pulled me to the side, I will never forget, and she said, thank you for being so brave and telling me this, because my husband goes out, and this was like November, every Christmas he goes out bowling and he drinks. And I lay at night and worry about him driving home. This year I'm picking him up from there. And just that one moment I thought, you know what? I don't mind whatever happened with him, it's helping other people. So my children were so scared. They were so scared and confused and oh my gosh, and they're calling the man by name and praying every night and I hope he's going to be okay. I hope this man's going to be okay.
The man that your husband hit in the accident?
Yes, correct. The man my husband hit. We find out on the internet, my mother actually calls me and says, I hope you're sitting down because I found out that he had passed away.
Jeez.
And I said, what? I said, we had no idea. I had no idea that this man had died. I thought, oh my gosh, this poor man has lost his life. My husband actually killed somebody. And it was horrifying, horrifying. We had to go to the courts once a month, and I accompanied him because he of course didn't have a license. And I would go and I would look at a woman who lost her husband because of my husband's choice to get into a car. I don't call it an accident, I call it a choice. He chose to get in that car. There were so many times in his life that he could have made better decisions. I kept telling him over and over again, you have children. Think about that when you do anything, when you make these choices. And it was really hard. I had so many times I've had a police officer in my town bring him to my door drunk. They had followed him home and said, here's his keys. And I said, okay. I'm thinking in the back of my head, I take him. This isn't right. You're not doing anybody any favors by letting these people go. It's not right. It is not right. I had to see this lady, and the lawyer would tell you can't look at these people, just, I would cry every single time because I would just think to myself, I want to reach out to this poor woman and just tell her, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. But then I thought even saying sorry is not enough. There's nothing I could do to bring her husband back. There's nothing I could do. Her stepson would accompany her at times. Her daughter would accompany. And again, it was just so cold. I'll never forget walking out of the bathroom at the courthouse. And I'm walking in and she's walking out and I just crumbled. I went in the stall and I just crumbled because I felt so bad for this lady and I thought, oh my gosh, I just got that close to her and I felt, it was just horrible. And I was so angry at my husband. I was there, I brought him to court, but I never once wanted that family to think that what he did was okay or justified or that her husband died in vain. I couldn't fathom it. We went and looked at the truck that my husband was driving. We got to the place and they said, how is he alive? How could he be walking in here? That's how bad his truck was. We had later found out that they believe he ran a red light. He doesn't remember anything. I'm not sure if he blacked out, fell asleep. I'll never know. They tried to find the black box in the truck. They tried to recreate the accident, seeing everything, and it sounds like he just flew through a red light and hit the car of this man, and he was on a ventilator pretty much instantly after this, and that's pretty much how he ended up passing away, on a ventilator.
What effect has this had on your family, your sons and yourself financially?
It has been so hard. My husband ended up getting 5 years in prison, and they took him away, and then there I was. I was a stay-at-home mother with a house. Fortunately, not a car payment. The little things that you never thought about. Luckily, the kind of occupation he had was going to cover me insurance. It was only going to cover me insurance for a little bit.
Health insurance?
Health insurance, yeah. I had to figure out what to do. I thought to myself, thank you, God, that I actually went to school and I have a degree. I had a teaching degree. I tried to get in, but I had been home with my children, staying home with them. That's the life I wanted for them. I wanted to be able to do all these wonderful things. My older child I was able to go on field trips with. Now, because of these choices, I'm not going to be able to do this with my children. He changed all this. So it affected everything, and it was so scary. All I could think is, I'm going to lose this house. What am I going to do? Where am I going to go? I don't want to take the kids are going through so much already. I didn't want to take them out of their surroundings. So I found some inner strength somewhere. I don't know where. And I thought, I got to do this. I got to fight for my kids. With him going to prison, there's nothing. There's no child support. There's no services for people who have somebody in prison. You're on your own. I got a job. I tried to apply for public aid, different things. They let me have it for a little bit, and then that was gone. And it was a very short time that I had it, because I was told I made too much money, which I'm thinking, how do I make too much money? And even going to these places, I never did this in my life. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to do it. I was lost. And then I'm finding that I have to drive to take my children to a prison to visit their father. My child left the prison throwing up outside the prison because he was so emotionally distraught. He could hear guards yelling and everything, and it was an adult situation that my children got put into. My parents have been affected. They're retired. They fortunately live close to me, but now their vacations and things like that have changed, because when I have to work, they take care of the kids, and I feel guilty because I feel like all this has trickled down to so many people. And then I think about the family that lost this man, and how he's missing grandchildren, and he's missing out on all these things. Yes, my husband has to live with this for the rest of his life. He does. And my children have to live with this for the rest of their lives. They are embarrassed at school. They don't tell my daddy's in jail. My daddy killed somebody. It's not something you want people to know. I had a hard time. I've chose to tell people my story because it's so important. It could happen to anybody. And alcohol is out there, and there's so many. When you make that choice to get into a car, you're affecting so many lives. You have no idea the amount of impact you're making on people. It's my children just constantly, the littlest things that they don't understand. My son, they had a program at school talking about drugs, alcohol, things like that. My son started crying at the program because he was shaking and hiding in my arms, and I started crying because it affected him because they were talking about drunk drivers. And here's my kid, and I'm thinking, this is not right. He's going through all these adult situations. It's the intersection's not far from our home. It's just changed my life. It's changed my life so much. I'm blessed by people I know who have tried to help me. It's just what happened, and I hope that there's something that can be done. I'm scared myself now when I go driving that somebody could be drunk on the road. I'm afraid for my kids. I'm afraid for everybody. I don't know how to stop it. I wish there was a way to stop it. I can't. I have a hard time being around people drinking now. It turns my stomach. I can't do it because I know what it does, and people don't realize that one little thing, it's a choice that you make, and it's ruined. You've ruined so many lives, and you cannot take it back. You cannot take it back.
How is your relationship with your incarcerated husband at this point?
It's not very good, and he calls and talks to the children. He misses his children. He misses them very much, and he's always telling me how much he misses them. And I say to him, at least you get to get out. At least you get to see them. This man doesn't. This man can't see his children. And my children get off the phone and they're very sad every time they talk to him. I have a hard time. I forgive him. He's the father of my children. But I recently have decided that I can't do it anymore in the marriage. And it's a shame for my children too.
Puts them through another period of time in which should not have, in all likelihood, ever happened.
Absolutely.
It would never have happened, yeah. If it's another result, it's another horrible result of a horrible choice for a lot of different people, and your kids are just a part of that, unfortunately.
And it's not. It's just there's so many people that think it's not going to happen to them, and of course we never thought it was going to happen. Nobody does. You don't. You go out. You're having fun. I used to tell them all the time, have as much fun as you want. Call me. Call somebody. It's not. It doesn't make it okay. And when somebody tells you they're fine, they're not fine. If you feel it in your gut, follow your instinct and drive that person. Do whatever you can. I wish I could have did something, but there's nothing I could have done. It was his choice, and he did this.
Speaking of your children, how are their relationship with the grandfather, the uncles, the aunts on your husband's side? Has that changed?
They do talk to them. They don't see him as much as they used to, because they pretty much have their own lives. At first, when the incident happened, they were around, and then things just kind of, life gets in the way of life, and everybody goes their own way. So I've tried to tend to my house and just make do with that. Actually, friends have stepped up. Believe it or not, some people that you don't know that well have come forward and helped me. I've actually had people, I told somebody my story once and they just sent me a gift card, which was so nice. And how I've had to change my life, it's the littlest things, like you take things for granted. Health insurance, things like that, I took for granted. I've had a miracle of a dentist for my children that they had been going to since they were babies, who have He has not charged me once for the fees. He from the kindness of his heart. I can't thank him enough. And that's somebody I don't even know. And when you have a situation like this, sometimes people you think are gonna help you don't, and you're on your own. I just fear for other people that might go through this who are alone and don't know what to do, and I feel like I know it's not my family that lost somebody to the drunk driver, but it's very embarrassing and it's so hard to be the one that is connected with the person that caused all this harm to people. It's very hard for me. And I feel almost like a victim in a different way. I didn't lose somebody that way, but boy, I sure have to tell myself that I did not cause this. I didn't do this. There's nothing I could have did. There's nothing I could have did. And how much I wanted to embrace the family and just help.